Hi, this is another session of my video autobiography, and this one's going to be about my college years. I went to, after graduating from Cass Tech, I wanted to go to U of M, and I was accepted there, but my dad didn't want to pay for it, so he wanted me to go to Wayne. No way did I want to go to Wayne State. That was down in Detroit, and I didn't want to go down into Detroit anymore, so at the last minute I applied to Schoolcraft Community College in Livonia. And I went there from 1967 to 1969. I lived at home, so that helped save some money. And I worked part-time, and I worked at a few jobs. I was a night watchman at one job. And another job, I worked at the Kroger Bakery. And I worked there with Mike Ferris. He was just like my best friend at Schoolcraft. In my second year, I had, at the end of my first year, I had developed a lot of friends there. Mike Ferris being my best friend, but there was Gary Gable, Bassem Abdelnauer, and just a whole slew of people. And I started dating, and I dated a lot. Now, I only dated girls maybe once or twice, because once I got to know them, it didn't interest me after that. But I don't know why, but it just didn't. And I would always take them to really nice places, especially when I had the job at Kroger, because I had some extra money. And so I would take them to very nice restaurants. I usually wore a sports coat and a tie, so I kind of did it up right. At the end of the first year, a bunch of us decided, hey, we want to join the local theater group. Okay. I had done some theater back in the 8th grade, and I liked it. So we did, and yes, I was in 2 plays. In one of the plays, I was a cowboy, and of all the bit parts, I had the lead bit part. And then in the other play, I was one of the main characters. I was the second lead, second male lead in there, and believe it or not, I was the bad guy. Yeah, I was this hick hillbilly who, yeah, anyway, I was the bad guy. But I also, when I took chemistry there, because I had had a whole bunch of chemistry at Cass Tech, I knew the chemistry. I'd already had this stuff. And so I wound up tutoring 2 guys through first year chemistry. One was Mike Ferris, and the other was a guy named Jim Vasilinek. Now, Jim later went on to join me at Eastern, where he took a mycology course, which is kind of an offshoot of biology. And he got into it so much that his teacher was the head of all the biology experiments for Apollo 16. And so in the summertime, Jim got to go down to Houston, lucky guy, and work at NASA with the astronauts. I mean, how great was that, you know? And I tutored this guy through first year chemistry. Anyway, I also tutored Mike Ferris through first year chemistry. Now, into the second year, he dropped out. He was not a book learner. But I learned a valuable lesson here. And Mike went on to become a draftsman at this automation company, and within a few years, he was a vice president of the company. He was one of the directors. Mike was a brilliant guy. He just wasn't a book learner. I don't think he read another book after he got out of college for the rest of his life. But Mike and Tina stayed best friends of ours. Well, Tina still is. Mike passed away about 2 years ago, and Tina asked me to speak at his funeral, and I was very honored to do that. Mike was just, he was a wonderful guy. Mike and Tina were also Christians. I kind of had something indirectly to do with Mike being a Christian. I would write him, I would take these little scripture postcards and I would write really small on the back so I could fit a whole letter in there. And Mike said he was just kind of thinking about God one day as he was mowing the lawn, and he came in and he saw my scripture postcard and he looked at the scripture on there, and he just said he went in and he laid down on his bed and just started talking to God. And through that experience, he invited Jesus into his life. So that was pretty awesome. Anyway, so then in 1969, I transferred up to Eastern Michigan University in Ypsilanti. Now that was about 40 minutes away. And I did live on campus. The first year I lived in a dorm, and then the other 2 years I lived in apartments. I also worked full-time in the summer and part-time in the school year. So at Eastern, I paid my own way. Now, I didn't have a lot of money at Eastern, but I did pay my way through 3 years of it, so when I graduated, I had no debt. And back then, you could do that if you really, really worked at it. My roommates in the dorm were nice guys. We also had suite mates. 2 rooms shared a bathroom, and so your roommates were in the room with you, and in the other room were what they call suite mates. And that was pretty good. And then when I moved into apartments, I had some real good friends there. I didn't have the kind of friends, though, that I did at Schoolcraft, and I think it's because within 6 months of being at Eastern, I had a girlfriend. And I had the girlfriend for 3 years, so she was even my girlfriend for even after we graduated. I got my bachelor's degree in physics, and I minored in astronomy, chemistry, and math. So I prepared for my future, but not all the way. What I should have done, I mean, I loved physics, I loved astronomy, but I should have gone over to the library, the college library, and in the reference section looked up what kind of jobs can you get with a bachelor's degree in physics. And I never did that. So did I prepare for my future? Yeah. Could I have prepared better? Yeah, I could have. Anyway, so after graduation, I got a job working as a chemist in Livonia. Now that was about 40 minutes away, and my girlfriend got a job right in Ypsilanti working as an art teacher at the local high school. Now she had been bugging me for about 2 years to get married, and I was just cautious. She had cheated on me a couple of times, and then she had asked for forgiveness, and I gave it, and I thought we worked through it. But when she was teaching as an art teacher, there was a married, counselor there, and he made a pass at her, and it was a completed pass. And so in the last few months of 1972, she started having an affair with him. Now, he was married. We broke up in December of 1972. She broke up with me, and I was devastated. I had been thinking of going back to grad school anyway to get a teaching degree, because by this time I was beginning to want to teach. And so while I was working full-time in the daytime as a chemist, I went back to grad school at night, full-time, to get a teaching degree. And I did, and in December of 1973, I received my teaching degree. But 1973 was the most depressing year of my life. Ypsilanti is a small town. I would run into my girlfriend now and then. The married man that she had left me for, when she went to him and said, "Hey, I dumped my boyfriend, now dump your wife, we can be together," he said, "Well, you know, she's doing a little better. I don't think it'll last. You know, let's continue this for a few more months." Well, then she realized, you know, she'd been played, and so she just started dating everybody, whether they were married or not. And I would, through the grapevine, I would hear about this, and so it was pretty depressed. I did date a little bit, but not much. I didn't really have a place to meet girls. Most of the girls in grad school were married at that time. So I decided, I called up my buddy in California and I said, "I got to get out of here. You know, can I come out and live with you?" And he said, "Sure. You know, you could live with my wife and I. You could sleep on our couch." They had a one-bedroom apartment out there. And he said, "You know, it'll take you a month or two to get a job and to meet somebody. So yeah, you can do that." And so in January of 1974, that's what I did. But I did learn a few things. When I was going to school, and I had thoughts of being a great scientist, this is kind of before I realized I don't have the smarts to be a great scientist. I realized, you know, even if I was a really great scientist, what's it going to amount to? You know, I might get my name in a textbook somewhere and they might talk about me for a paragraph and that's it. Where's the significance in that? And where is the eternal significance in it? But I kind of put that out of my mind and went on. And then on the way from Ypsilanti to Livonia, when I would go in to see my parents, there were these two houses and they were on opposite sides of the street. It was in the country and they had a good amount of land to them. And they were beautiful houses and nice manicured lawns, but there was woods behind them. I mean, it was, and I remember every time I went by those places, I looked at them and I remember thinking, to live in one of these places, that's success. And one day as I was going by them, and I was looking, just glancing at one of them, I wouldn't have said it was God at the time, but I think in hindsight, God spoke to me and he said, "That house can be destroyed by an earthquake like that. Then where's your success going to be? What are you building your success on? Is it a firm foundation or is it shifting sand?" And again, I wasn't a Christian at that point, but I thought about it and I thought, wow, yeah, what am I building my life on? What is my foundation? And honestly, when my girlfriend dumped me, my house, so to speak, or my foundation collapsed, because I was building it on her and on the definition of success of these houses. Really, I was trusting myself to build my life on things that didn't produce the life that I really wanted. Another thing is, you know, education is good, it really is, but it can puff you up. 1 Corinthians chapter 8 verse 1 says knowledge puffs up. It makes you proud, or it can make you proud. And it's a trap that you can fall into, thinking, well, gee, I know so much, and aren't I great, and aren't I better than these other people that don't know so much? So all of those things I learned from being at Eastern and building my life on a false definition of success and on another person, You know, I learned I was building, I was making the foundation of my life on shifting sands, on things that could be taken away from me. But anyway, at the end of 1973, all of these things together, they left me feeling very depressed about the future of my life. And what I really got to thinking about is, what significance would my life have? Not just now, but even after I was gone, in eternity. And eternity is a lot longer than this life now. I talk about this more in depth when I go into my salvation sessions, which are coming up next. But I didn't see it then, but I would come to see that the solution to all of these problems would be when I invited Jesus into my life and I built my life on his foundation, because that's building on a rock. That's building on something that's not going to be taken away from me. It's not going to collapse. When I did go out to California, though, in 1974, 1975, I went to Cal State University at Northridge, and I was in grad school there, and I was majoring in astrophysics. To help support myself, I did get a job as an undergraduate teaching assistant. I taught a physics lab part-time while I was there. I dropped out about halfway through a master's degree to get married to Mom. I could have finished the master's, but I could not have done the work required for a doctorate. I realized at that point, I'm just not that smart. I was good in physics, but the math required for physics at that level was just beyond me. So, and I'd been going to school for, I don't know, 7 years. And I was tired. And I fell so deeply in love with Mom, and I did want to get married to her. Now, I was thinking about, at this point I was a Christian, and I was thinking about going to seminary. In fact, we planned our wedding around when the seminary semesters were. But I decided not to do that. I wanted to be married and build on my marriage first. Then, when we eventually went back, like 8 months later, to Michigan, I did check into grad school at my old alma mater, Eastern Michigan University, and they said, sure, we'll accept you in the graduate program. But, you know, at that time, Mom had just gotten pregnant, and I figured me going to grad school and working full-time while I have a kid, I could probably do it, but I said, you know what, I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to major on being a good husband and a father, and we'll see what comes later. And it never came. We had 3 kids right away, and I'm glad we did, and I love them dearly. But it really hasn't ever hurt me not having a master's. So that's about it for this time, and the next session I'll talk to you about my salvation story. Bye-bye.